In the beginning of this chapter, we are going to talk about integers. So let's first start by defining integer. So an integer is a positive or negative whole number. So we can actually list all of the integers, but let's just talk about first whole number. Whole number is starting with the whole, and I like to say that because 0, it looks like a whole, and then it's our counting numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, ... So our whole numbers 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and so on. And integers are positive or negative whole numbers. So we can make this as a list as well. So our integers are -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, ... And when we use the squiggly brackets just means a list. So I can list the whole numbers as well. So the integers are a list. There's no fractions, no decimals. So what is not an integer? They're not fractions or decimals. They have to be like whole counting numbers, positive or negative. Okay? So let's talk about Miss Byers' integer meter. So I like to think of our number line, and this comes in handy when we start ordering integers. I'm not sure why that's not making a straight line. So here's my meter. Come on. I'm trying to get a straight line. There we go. So we have zeros in the middle of our number line, and then we have 1, 2, 3, -1, -2, -3. So I'm going to say 0 is neutral. So 0's right in the middle, 0 is neutral. And then we have all of our negative numbers. All of our negative numbers are the smallest numbers. So we have our negative numbers over here. They are the smallest group when we're talking about if we're grouping them. So this is our smallest numbers. And then we have our positive numbers, which are our bigger numbers. So you know that 1 is smaller than 3. But -1 is even smaller than +1. So when we are grouping our numbers, or if we're ordering them from least to greatest, we're going to think of this. Because if we're ordering from least to greatest, we want our negatives to come first. And we want our bigger negative to come first. So -3 is bigger than is smaller than -1. So we're going to think about this when we get to comparing. Now let's talk about opposites. Opposites is the distance from 0. I'm going to rephrase that. It is another number with the same distance from 0. That's like our definition. So what is the opposite of 4? So 4 is 4 away from 0. But what else is 4 away from 0? And that answer is -4. So the opposite means we can just switch the sign, the opposite sign. So what is the opposite of -8? And that is +8. Okay? Then we're going to talk about absolute value. Absolute value is the distance to 0. Okay? So how far is 7 from 0? The absolute value bars are these little bars right next to the number. So they're saying, what is the distance to 0 from 7? How far is 7 from 0? Well, 7 is 7 spaces from 0. How far is -12 from 0? And it is 12 spaces away. And how far is 0 from 0? What's the absolute value of 0? And the answer is 0. So if you notice, all of these answers are positive. The absolute value is always positive. Okay? Because if it's a distance can only be positive. You would never say, oh, you'd say I ran 3 miles. I didn't run -3 miles. Even if you ran it backwards, you wouldn't have run negative miles. You have always run a positive distance. Okay? The next thing is adding opposites. So when we add opposites, meaning here we have 8, and we are adding it with its opposite, -8. Anytime we add opposites, our answer is 0. Okay? Then we have 3 plus 3. This one was just to make sure you're not just saying that it's 0 because they're the same number. They are not opposites. 3 and 3 are the same number, which means we would just add regular, and that would be 6. And then again, here we have -5, and we're adding it with 5. So if I was at -5 and I added 5, I get 0. And then we're going to get to comparing. So in comparing, we have comparing symbols. We have greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, and we also have equal to. Okay, so we're going to compare -7 and 1. So remember what I said before about our meter. -7 is the small on the negative side, +1 is on the positive side. So -7 must be smaller, since our negatives come first. It must be smaller than 1. So -7 is less than 1. We could have also said 1 is greater than -7, depending on how you, which one you put first. Okay. Then it says compare -2 and -8. So here they are both negative, meaning on our meter, they're both over here. They're both in our negatives. So when we're comparing, our bigger number in our negatives is actually smaller. So in our positives, our bigger number is bigger, but in our negatives, it's the opposite. So we have -8 is less than -2, or -2 is greater than -8. Okay, and I like to think the mouth is open towards the -2 both times, so it didn't change our statement, even though they're written differently. Okay. Now we're going to order the numbers from least to greatest. So not necessarily using our symbols, we're just going to make a list. So in this case, I want us to start with our negatives, ignoring our positive ones because we know that they're bigger. Let's go to our negatives. So I see -1 and -4, and we need to decide which one is smaller. So we know now that our bigger negatives are smaller. So we have -4, and then we have -1. And now I like to cross them out when I'm done using them. And then which one is smaller, 2 or 3? And it is 2. And then 3 is our bigger number here. Okay. And then last but not least, it wants us to order our cities on the map from coldest to warmest. So coldest would be the biggest negative number. So we have -27, which is Fairbanks. And it says to list them. So it says to order the city. So we don't want the numbers, but I'm going to do it because it's going to help us out. So we used Fairbanks. And then we want our next biggest negative, which is -10, which is Nome. Okay. And I see only one more negative, so it must be next, -5, which is Anchorage. Then we go to our positive, our smallest positive, which is Valdez, 8 degrees. I should put degrees on these. Valdez. And then our next one, which would be Kodiak, which is 10. I'm going to write it below. And then our last but not least, our warmest, which is not very warm, 11 degrees, is Juneau.